This is a new Blu-ray release of an old series of Doctor Who. So, what does this look like inside? What makes season 18 so special? And which series of Doctor Who would I like to see get the Blu-ray re-release treatment next? You're about to find out. I am totally Jason Arnopp, the author of The Last Days of Jack Sparks, Beast in the Basement and some Doctor Who stuff. If you're new here, then consider hitting that little subscribe button in that bottom right hand corner of the screen there so you don't miss any future videos like this one. And let's talk about season 18 for a moment, because it does feel like a really special series of Doctor Who in a couple of ways. Firstly, it's leading up to the departure of Tom Baker, who'd spent 7 years in the role of the Fourth Doctor. This obviously lends the whole thing a sense of gravitas, although that gravitas is only really in retrospect, because it's not as if there's some kind of ominous series arc dotted throughout the series in the modern way that we're familiar with now, post Bad Wolf. I mean, yes, season 18's closing story Legopolis does create a sense of foreboding by introducing the mysterious spectral figure of the Watcher, who turns out to be an inexplicable manifestation of the Doctor, a bit like a walking pupa. But this only happens across the final 7th of the entire season. If this was a modern series of Doctor Who, we probably would have seen the Watcher for the first time in the Leisure Hive. Maybe we would have glimpsed him again about halfway through in State of Decay. Secondly, the whole visual style of the show changed with this series, and that went far beyond the new opening titles and just into the real stylistic meat of the thing. The incoming producer John Nathan Turner and the script editor Christopher Bidmead clearly wanted to make their mark on the show. As much as I do love The Horns of Nimon, which is the serial broadcast directly before this season began, there's no question that this whole thing does feel nicely fresh. And it's no coincidence that it's the start of the 80s either, a whole new decade, and things start to look a lot more colourful in that garish 80s fashion. This big stylistic change was, of course, paving the way for the arrival of Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, which is kind of odd in a way. Can you imagine if those final specials starring David Tennant as the 10th Doctor had suddenly adopted the visual style and the fairy tale approach of the Stephen Moffat / Matt Smith era? Yeah, that would have felt a bit odd, and so does season 18, but it's a wonderful kind of odd. So let's open this up, and when we're finished with it, I'll tell you which Doctor Who season I would personally like to see get the Blu-ray treatment next. Well now, I don't mind saying, this is rather exciting. Part of me, of course, as a collector of stuff, would like to keep this sealed forever, so it would be absolutely pristine and beautiful. But then, of course, you realise there's no point keeping stuff if you're not actually going to use it for the purpose for which it was intended. This is now the 3rd limited edition Blu-ray release of a Doctor Who season. I really like the design of these. They feel nicely sturdy and just very pleasing all round. So we remove that, we put that there, and we're left with this gorgeous book type thing, like a Stephen King novel. Oh, lovely. A nice, very nice image from Warrior's Gate there, which is the 5th story of this season. Right, what's inside? This is a moment of joy. I mean, obviously I know there's going to be several Blu-rays inside, but what else? Tom Baker was looking rather subdued in this performance, and it certainly aged him. Now, what is inside here? That's what I'd like to know. A lovely portrait here of the Fourth Doctor, and in the background you can see the Watcher lurking, watching in fact. That's lovely, isn't it? Okay, so what's in here? There's the TARDIS console room, which has another TARDIS inside it. This leaflet looks very nice and glossy. Yes. Lovely stuff. Lots of colour pictures, lots of details. This is what we want. And this release is so loaded with extras that half of this booklet is probably dedicated to telling you what's inside it. I'm very happy with that. Actually, I'm going to put that back in there. Okay, I've completely forgotten which way it is. There we go. That's really nice. That's a lovely little treat. Okay, what else we got? We'll just have a look at the designs on each of the discs. The Leisure Hive. I really like this story. Obviously, it starts off in Brighton, where I live, with that panoramic shot along the beach. Ah, yes, there's Meglos. Probably not one of the more celebrated of Doctor Who stories, but this businessman possessed by a cactus is an arresting image, I'm sure you'll agree. And now begins the E-Space trilogy with Full Circle, which I loved as a kid, and that one introduces the companion Adric, who I also loved as a kid, and therefore was rather upset the following series. It was the first thing written by Andrew Smith, a young Andrew Smith, who's a friend of mine. The E-Space trilogy continues with State of Decay, which I haven't seen in a long time, so I'm looking forward to me and the writer John Higgs are going to get together and watch this box set. So, yeah, State of Decay. I remember this being pretty scary. I remember there being a really disturbing moment where someone gets their neck broken by one of the vampires. And that really, yeah, that moment kind of stayed with me. I wonder how I'll find it now. And, yeah, Warrior's Gate, written by the horror writer Stephen Gallagher. That's a mad story and very imaginative stuff, and another one which I haven't watched in quite a while, so I'm looking forward to doing that. And I can remember those Gundam robots were fantastic, dressed up in armour, and I remember one particularly strong scene where one of them bursts into the room and buries an axe in a dining table, which is always a good way to get people's attention, in case you're wondering. Now, The Keeper of Traken is one of my favourite it's definitely one of my favourites from this series. I love the Melchior. The voice is just fantastic. Geoffrey Beevers has the kind of voice that the word mellifluous was designed to describe. And I really like this story. And of course, spoilers for the end of this story. It turns out that the Master's involved. And he possesses Nissa's father, Treemass, which is quite an unpleasant notion, really. It's quite weird, though, that Treemass happened to have a name that was an anagram of Master. Was that just fate? Or, I don't know, you decide. And of course, finally, we have Logopolis, Tom Baker's final story as the Doctor. And again, I haven't seen this in quite a while, so this is a really well-timed box set for me, because there's so many stories that I'm due to sit down and revisit. Fantastic. What a gorgeous package. Marvellous. Well, that was fun, wasn't it, having a look in there? Yes. And I did promise that I'd tell you which classic Doctor Who series that I would like to see released on Blu-ray next. And frankly, I don't know if this is going to be an incredibly popular choice, but nevertheless, it is my choice. And I've chosen this particular season because it has 4 of my favourite Doctor Who Tom Baker serials in it. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me, whereas some people would probably think it's just no-brain. The one I've chosen is season 15. And I know there's other seasons that have like Pyramids of Mars and Robots of Death and Talons and Morbius in it. But as I say, this one has 4 superb serials in it. It's got the Horror of Fang Rock, the Invisible Enemy, and the Image of the Fendal, just one after the other. That's just 3 of my favourite Tom Baker serials all in a row. And it has the Sunmakers, which I haven't revisited, I must admit, since the 70s. I really should do that. And Underworld, which is a favourite of mine on the rare occasion when I come home drunk. For some reason, Underworld is one of my go-to drunk Doctor Who stories, as is The Leisure Hive, actually. And closing off the series is another one of my favourite Tom Baker serials, The Invasion of Time. Again, an often derided story, but one which I happen to love. You know, what do you want from me? If you'd like to see the full list of my favourite Tom Baker serials, then I've put together a storefront at Amazon UK where I've gathered those together in a top 10 list. So I'll put the link down below. I really hope you've enjoyed yourself, and if you did, then consider hitting like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. What do you think of this season 18 set, and which series of Doctor Who would you like to see get the Blu-ray treatment? Tell me in comments below. Thanks so much for watching. To play us out, here's Baby Chaos.